To start, you need two 4x4 inch squares. The bottom is cotton flannel. The top is cotton terry cloth. Next, you'll want to identify which is the right side versus the wrong side of the fabric. And then you'll want to place the right sides together. I like to clip those in place in order just to make sure that they're secured together. Now I'm going to place a stitch line for a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Typically I do not do this step, but as an ultra beginner, it would be nice to have a stitch line so that you can watch your needle actually go where it's supposed to go to ensure that you're getting that 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. As you can see on this side, I'm not drawing the line all the way across. That's because we need to ensure that we've got about 1.5 inches opening in order to turn the project later. So you definitely want to make sure that this is an important step and you've got to leave that opening there. Now that we're at the machine, you can see on my faceplate, I've got a 1/4 inch seam allowance guide right there. So as we place our project underneath the needle, we're going to line the fabric up with that 1/4 inch mark on the machine. And then as you can see, the stitch line, the purple stitch line there that I've drawn, you'll be able to use that as the line where your needle is going to be going through. Don't forget to back stitch at the start of your stitch line. And as we're rounding this corner here, you'll see that my needle is down. So as you're approaching the corner, what you'll want to do is you'll want to leave the needle down, lift up your presser foot, and then pivot the project. You'll get to see that again at the next corner here too. Needle down, presser foot up, and then pivot the project. And then just continue sewing. As we approach the final side, don't forget this is the side that has the opening. So we're going to sew up until we get to the edge of that opening there, the end of our stitch line. You're going to back stitch in order to secure those stitches and then pull your project off the machine. Before you do anything else, you'll want to check to make sure that the stitching went through both layers all the way around the project. Then you can clean up some of these extra thread tails that are just hanging off. And next, we're going to make sure we clip the corners and then reduce some of that seam allowance on the sides. What that will do is reduce the bulk on the inside of the project. We're in the home stretch here. Now we want to turn our project right side out. I like to stick my middle finger in and then grab one of those far corners, pull those through, and then it sort of births itself and you're able to turn that project out. And then make sure you get your fingers in there in order to poke out those corners. I use this super cool turning tool, but it's not necessary. You can just use a pen or something of that nature. Fold down the sides of that opening, and then I like to put a clip here in order to mark the opening because we're headed back to the machine. As a finishing touch, we're going to add a top stitch at 1/8 inch seam allowance, and make sure that you start with the side that has the whole opening. We're going to stitch a couple stitches, do a back stitch, and then proceed at 1/8 inch seam allowance all the way around the project in order to finish off that top stitch. As you can see, I'm finger pressing as we go along and just finessing the fabric before it goes under the needle in order to just make sure I have a nice clean top stitch. When you get all the way around and back to where you started, you basically just want those stitches to meet up. You're going to back stitch, take your project off the machine, cut your threads, and now you finish.